we want to factor 10q squared minus 23q plus 12. So this is a good example of one that you'd want to use the AC method on. Because if you really tried to factor it directly, you would have lots of possibilities for the first term, like 1 and 10 and 2 and 5, and you would have lots of possibilities for the second term, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and of course all of those reversed. So let's tackle this using the AC method. In step 1, check all of your numbers to see if they have a common factor. So I got 10, 23, and 12. Looks like they don't have anything in common. That unfortunately means I can't pull anything out and make the number smaller. So on to step 2. I want to go ahead and multiply my A term and my C term together. So 10 times 12 would equal 120. So I'm looking for two numbers that will multiply to give me 120 and add to be a negative 23. This is where our little box will come in handy. Let me just put in a few little notes. So we want them to multiply to give us that top number, and we want them to add to give us that negative 23. All right. To help us better find the numbers that will go ahead and do this, I'm going to start listing out all the pairs of numbers that will multiply to give us 120. So 1, 120, 2, and 60. I have 3 and 40. And really just keep continuing making this list until you get as many numbers as possible. So I got 4, 30, 5, 24, 6 and 20, 8 and 15. Okay. Now that we have a bunch of numbers on this list, let's see how we can use it. So we want these two numbers to multiply to be a positive 120. And the way we built this list, they all should multiply to give us a 120. But they must add to give us a negative 23. Well, the only way you're going to add to get a negative number and multiply to get a positive number is if both of these new numbers here were negative. So let's see if we can pick two things off this list that will give us a negative 23 when added together. I think that's going to be the last two, 8 and 15. Okay, so notice how those will multiply, negative times a negative, will give us that positive 120, and they definitely add to be a negative 23. So those are the two numbers we want. Now comes the interesting thing. What I'm going to do with those two numbers is end up splitting up my original middle term. So I'm writing down the numbers of my original polynomial, but I'm not writing that negative 23 in there. This is where I split it into two terms. So this will be a negative 8q minus 15q. So I really haven't changed my polynomial. I've really just taken a look at it in a different way. Now notice how this new polynomial has 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to now attack it using factor by grouping, which means I really take these terms 2 at a time. So let's look at the first two, see what they have in common. Well, both are divisible by 2q. All right, so let's see what we got left over in here. So 2q, I would have, I have 5q minus 4. And let's see, what is in common with the next two? It looks like I can pull out a negative 3 from both of them. Let's see, that would leave us a 5q minus 4. And notice how the signs really do match up. Negative 3 times a positive 5 would give us that negative 15. Negative 3 times a negative 4 would give us that positive 12. All right, now we can go ahead and wrap this one up. They both have a 5q minus 4 in common. So I will write that for my first binomial, with the leftover pieces being a 2q and a minus 3. So that's quite a journey to get to those final two binomials, but notice how it is a little bit more methodical. You're not necessarily guessing or picking things out of the air. You really have a better hunting way of going about it. Let's quickly check to make sure that this is the correct factored polynomial just by running through the FOIL process. So 5q times 2q would be 10q squared. Outside terms, minus 15q. Inside terms, minus 8q. Last terms plus 12. It's already starting to look pretty good since it looks like that one. Now just combine my middle terms here. And I get 10q squared minus 23q plus 12, which is exactly the same as I had originally. So I know that this one is factored correctly using that AC method. All right, let's see the AC method again, just so we can get more familiar with it. So this one we want to factor 5t squared plus 13t minus 6. All right, what do we got? So I want to make sure that they have a greatest common factor of only 1, which means do they have anything in common that I can factor out at the very beginning? Well, 5, 13, and 6 don't have anything in common. So let's move on to multiplying the a and c terms together. 5 times a negative 6, and that would give us 30. So we need two numbers that will multiply to give us 30, but add to give us a 13. We'll use our box to help us out. So need to multiply to be a positive 30, and add to be 13. Remember that the two new numbers that we put in here, they must multiply to give us our 30, and they will add to give us our 13. And to help out with this search, we will list down all the things that multiply to give us 30. So 1, 30, 2, 15, 3, 10, and 4 and 15. Nope. Okay. So let's see, the only two things that are going to work from this list, or at least that I can see, I think will be our 3 and 10. So let's go ahead and put those in. Okay. Oop. Hold on, I think we forgot one of our signs here. Should be a negative 30 on top. That's why it's not working out good. Okay, now we'll try this again. So now we need two numbers from our list that will multiply to give us a negative 30, but add to be 13. Well, I think the 2 and the 15 will have to be the ones to do it, because they'll have to be different in sign to multiply to give us that negative 30. So how about positive 15 and negative 2? All right, now we are ready to split up our middle term. So I've written the first term and the last term. Now we'll write out that middle term split using these two new numbers. So minus 2t plus 15t. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Now that we have this, we want to factor by grouping. So we'll take these two at a time. Okay, 5t minus 2t. They only have one thing in common, and that would be a t. So let's see what's left over. 5t minus a 2. Looking at the next two terms, 15t minus 6, they have a 3 in common. (5t minus 2). All right. So now that we have the 5t minus 2 common piece, we'll go ahead and take it out of both of them and write out our leftover pieces, t plus 3. Okay, so this one did take quite a bit of work. Let's quickly check it again by foiling. 5t squared plus 15t minus 2t minus 6. These two middle terms combine, giving us a 13t minus 6, which is the same as the original. So I know that this is the correct factorization. All right.